Welcome to Simplilearn webinar, Redefining Future Readiness for the Modern Graduate, Expert Tips for a Successful Career Today. Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, he is the Vice Chancellor, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, and he will be hosted by Kashyap Dalal, who is the Chief Business Officer of Simplilearn. Before we start, a few instructions on how to ask us questions. You can use the question button to put in a Q&A question, which we will log and get to at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session. You can use the chat button to send comments in. Please set it to all panelists, and that way we will be able to all see it here. And if there are questions in the chat flow, we will also log those for answers at the end of the session. With that, let's get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Dalal, who will introduce Dr. Sancheti. Sorry, Kashyap.
Thanks, Stuart. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar that we have on the future readiness of our graduates and how do they get ready for a successful career in the current environment. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Sancheti, who is, as Stuart mentioned, the Vice Chancellor at SRM University. I think let me briefly introduce Dr. Sancheti for our viewers. So Dr. Sandeep Sancheti is currently the Vice Chancellor of the SRM University, Chennai. So in the past, he's been President of the Association of Indian Universities. He's also been a Director and President of a number of prestigious schools in the past. So I'll just name a few of them. So we have Manipal University, Jaipur, NIT Delhi, NIT Surathkal, NIT Trichy, NIT Calicut, and he's also mentored a lot of other schools. So, with more than 36 years of teaching and experience of leading universities, he's aptly known as the institution builder. And I really can't think of a better way of complementing the journey that Dr. Sancheti has had. I think apart from this, he's also a member of a lot of industry and policy influencing bodies, including FICCI, CII, Atal Innovation Mission, and so on. And apart from work, he's a player of bridge and squash, and also part of Rotary and few other social organizations. So I think I'm really honored to have Dr. Sancheti with us today, and look forward to a very engaging discussion. And I can't think of anybody better than him to shed light on the topic that we are talking about today. So, Dr. Sancheti, welcome. And
thank you, Mr. Kashyap. Thank you so much for introducing me and also inviting me. Thank you to Simplilearn as well, and all others, Mr. Stuart and Pooja, for facilitating this interaction. Very happy to join you.
Thank you, sir. So let me get started with a question which is so keeping it slightly open-ended to start with, so that we can lay a canvas for this discussion and kind of then get deeper. So, Dr. Sancheti, could you give us a sense of, like, over the last 10, 15 years, how have you seen the change that, the kind of market scenario and what our graduates enter after finishing their program? I mean, what is the journey that you've seen, and how do you see today in comparison to that? So would love to just get context on how you look at it.
Okay, thank you. If I take last 15 years, the changes have been much more rapid, primarily because of the emergence of, or the omnipresence of, what we call computers and the internet. Yes, they appeared in Indian scenario maybe in late 90s or early 2000s, but the real presence of the technology has made the changes much bigger. I would say internet access is still improving, and that has made the biggest change. These are the two major technological revolutions in the history of mankind which has impacted us. Yes, there might have been steam engines, there might have been various other things which were there, bulbs and all that, but these are the two topmost, and their real setting in our normal life is in recent times, and therefore everything has changed. And if you see the recent last couple of years, including the COVID situation, I think everything else has changed. As we know that COVID has been a big change maker. So today, one can always say that the way we eat or the way we meet or maybe we greet or treat or whatever that may be, everything is changing in a very, very big fashion. And that's impacting the students, the teachers, the relationship between them, the education setup, and of course the job market also. So earlier, possibly you can say that the students were very happy with getting a job, getting an engineering degree. Let's say if we are talking about engineering as a primary course here, then they were very happy. But today they are more aspirational. They are trying to decide the fate of their life by saying what they want and what they don't want. There was a time, if I'm not wrong, maybe till early 2000, you can say that top IIT graduates possibly would be aspiring to go abroad very easily for whatever they wanted to do. But today they are very happy to be remaining in India and doing whatever they can. Same with the same set of people probably were aspirational for what you call civil services or foreign services or the top notch government services which were there. But today those government jobs have shifted to Google jobs. They would be aspiring for Google. Similarly, I can possibly say that instead of becoming an innovator or inventor in a big way, at that time doing something fundamental, they would like to go to investment banking. So shifts are far too many in terms of what you can say. The rationals have changed, the relations have changed, the dreams have changed, the drivers have changed. And what has not changed or what had not changed much was the education, let me tell you. I'm sorry to say that I'm belonging to that domain, but we are very, very traditional. And it's only in recent times, last 2, 3 years, that we have started changing in a big way, trying to keep the pace with what the students want. Even till today, you can say that our teaching learning, especially in Indian context, is either regulatory centric or institutional centric, and at the best, teacher centric. If teacher is good, something will happen. It is still nowhere near student centricity. I think that change is now coming, or that eruption or change is happening right now. And therefore, I would say that it's happening for good. But one reason why it didn't happen earlier and why it's happening now is once again the technology. Some of these things were attempted by us earlier. We attempted 10 years back a virtual university concept with IIT Madras when I was myself in government. And we failed because it was rather premature or not appropriate in terms of what was the support available. So these are some of the changes I would say, which I have seen in past, let's say 10 to 15 years. But if we make the time frame bigger, I think there is a complete sea change which is there. The entire set of subjects, teaching, learning, the experimentation, the attributes which a student need to develop while graduating, everything has changed. So, but change is a constant, as we know, and we are all working towards this to make sure that our students are always benefited and they are able to serve the industry or society or anything they want to do in their life. They become capable of.
Right. No, Dr. Sancheti, some of the things that you mentioned about this entire change, I can't agree more. I mean, at Simplilearn, I recall that till as little as 4 years back, a lot of times, so we offer online curriculum for a lot of the programs, and this is through live classes. And what we kept hearing from a lot of students was that they would prefer to do it as an offline classroom. Right. And so there was a journey of adoption that over the last 7, 8 years, we have seen that gradually people getting more and more comfortable with virtual learning and virtual mode of interaction and stuff like that. And of course, now it's gone to the other extreme where, people have completely adopted it because they don't have a choice. So I
Virtual
think
is
it's
the
very
new real, as you know, or new
correct.
normal. So, mhm.
Absolutely. So, coming back to the topic that we were discussing, so through this 10, 15 years, while on one side technology has driven a lot of change in terms of people's aspirations and habits and choices and so on, how do you see the industry expectation changing? That let's say in 90s and then 2000s and now in the closer to 2020. So what comes in the media and what we keep hearing is more specific trends which are in the limelight. That, let's say, IT job boom, then sales and marketing or BPO jobs, and then more recently data jobs. So this is always, it's the tip of the iceberg. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on, right? That when you think about large number of graduates getting into the industry and kind of starting their careers and so on. How do you see that changing demand from the industry, and what kind of profiles are they looking for, or what kind of skills are they looking for, and how has that progressed through the time?
Yeah, I would say that earlier the testing or the acceptability or the process of selection for a job or acceptability for a job was more what a person can reproduce as a knowledge or the content or the direct deliverables. But today they are not necessarily looking at that. Reason for that is the life of any domain or any specific product or process is getting shorter, and by that nature of jobs are also changing, because they know that if they have to take a person and nurture him and then carry him or her for a longer time, one should be adaptable. So set of skills are completely changing. Today, I find very easily that a topper of a class may not find easy to get a job in any top industry unless he or she depicts or has extra outside skills or traits or maybe attributes which will suit. So, one of the biggest thing, in my opinion, which is changing is people try to see whether this person who is going to get a job or going to be offered a job is adaptable or not. Can he or she change according to the circumstances? Can he or she be having an ability, what we call learning to learn? This was not the case 5, 10 years back. And probably students themselves were expecting that once they study well and they master a domain, so-called master a domain by those standards, they'll probably survive for 30, 40 years in their life. They don't have to do much. And now it is a well said thing that after a few years of job or whatever activities, one may have to recharge the batteries. And that may be either skilling, doing courses from Simplilearn, or going for a master's program, or maybe self-learn, whatever it may be. So domains are changing very fast. The only challenge for students and for us who are supposedly the trainers for the students, though it's an age of self-learning, so we say that we are only facilitators. We are only mentors in some way. We cannot do everything. But the only challenge is we do not know what to expect in future. Future is becoming difficult to predict. Though in India, we have never tried to foresee what we need through our concerted effort by any agency, that what kind of, let's say, engineers or graduates will want specialization wise or otherwise or number wise. So there has been a challenge. So what happens here is by the masses reaction or the crowd reaction. But fortunately, IT is one biggest driver for the country, and IT NESCOM has been able to spell out certain things which are required, and accordingly things have changed in the academic domain. And today they've gone a step ahead, whether it is TCS or whether it is Wipro or whether it is any other Infosys or whatever big giants of the country. They have started collaborating with the Indian higher education system in a slightly bigger way.
Correct.
That they are directly contributing to the courses and teaching learning methods and also developing pedagogies and making their staff available to do that. Not only that, now the international domain people have started coming in a very, very big way. IBM, I think, started some 5, 6 years back, and then all sorts of other players are trying to do that. So when it comes to so-called preparedness for job, I think the answer would be dynamism one should acquire, diversity one should acquire, and make sure that one is ready for an international domain. Earlier, the local domains or the national domain was sufficient. Now it has to be an international domain for which one has to work. So these are certain things which I would say which are changing. But I would also say that a recent change which is there is that we used to say that he's a master of one and jack of all and jack of none. Various other contributions were combinations were there. But today, earlier you used to survive with that I-shaped expertise that I'm expert in one domain and I'll survive. But today
Right.
that I-shape has become T-shaped. You need to know a lot of other domains in addition to your own expert domain if you have to survive in the changing market situation. So that's one thing. And whether you are a commerce graduate or arts graduate or history graduate, whatever it may be, I think you need to be tech savvy. I think if I'm a history teacher, today I need to know that how do I use the concept of time machine to teach history to my student. And then only history will be attractive and appealing, and then probably new things will come out of from that sort of history. So there are many things which are changing. And if I say if engineering was providing jobs in mechanical, civil, electrical, I think those kind of jobs are vanishing. Today, there'll be a better job for food engineer. There'll be better job for fire engineer. There'll be better job for fashion engineer. And if you go to the computer domain, all these new changes which you are probably seeing from AI to big data to machine learning to anything which you talk about, they are super specialized in terms of cyber security or information security or computer networks or what are those 8, 10 disciplines which we are talking about. So yes, specializations have retained their place, but a lot of other characteristics or attributes are also required in the would-be graduates right now.
Right. Dr. Sancheti, I think some very interesting points that you mentioned. I mean, this is something that we have also seen firsthand being more in the digital skilling space. And, some of the examples that you quoted that NASCOM is working on a kind of putting some structure to it. So under their future skills project that they've done, I think they've mapped out around 40, 50 different roles that power digital verticals or IT in general in the world,
Mhm.
and having skills mapped to it. So I think that's also a space that Simplilearn operates in, and we actively see that people who come in for training post their normal education, so people who are like 2 years, 5 years experience coming and doing one of these programs, their goal is very clear that I want to get into this kind of a role. So I'm picking up the skills needed for that role. But what I found very interesting was also your entire point about learning to learn, and that becoming the biggest skill in the future. And especially, I think what I can relate to is that whenever there is more uncertainty and faster change, it is the ability to adapt and problem solving. That basic first principle problem solving, if people are good at, then definitely they can take something fresh thrown at them and
Yeah,
figure out how to kind of handle it, and therefore be
yeah.
ready for the future in that sense.
Mhm.
So one of the things I think in the COVID scenario, Dr. Sancheti, which I think a lot of people will have on their minds, is more this that what should they expect in the next 12 months, 24-month period? That one part is the kind of change that's happened in the last 15, 20 years, and
Mhm.
now there's this. So already there was so much change. There was technology and business disruption and so on. I mean, one
Mhm.
example that we quote internally a lot of times was that a company like Nokia in 2007, 2008, nobody could have thought of that in 2012 that company won't be there anymore, right? So
Yeah.
at that pace of change was already there, and now you
Mhm.
have a COVID kind of scenario, which further creates that much more chaos. So in the current climate, I mean, do you see some of the same stuff being more critical, or do you see something new becoming very important for the graduates kind of entering the market right now?
Yeah, I think a whole lot of things can be said about this particular question. One, as it is even pre-COVID times, we have started defining everything as pre-COVID and COVID and post-COVID, which will anyway happen soon, hope so. Today, the Russians have claimed the vaccine, so we don't know how things will change. But everything has become highly non-linear. That means its relationship with its input can be different and output can be different. Uh, yes, we know the cycles, many things happens in a cyclic fashion, but the cycles have also changed. Some has become faster, some has become slower. And there are certain things which have gone through a complete phase shift of 180 degree. I can just give you an example of what we do. Earlier, our focus was on covering the syllabus all the time. When we go to the class
Right.
and we'll tell students that we are covering the syllabus, and at the end we'll be very happy. And today the concept has completely changed. It is uncover the syllabus, uncover its potential, the subject's potential, why we are teaching, where will it be used. So if a static thing like teaching domain can change so much with 180-degree phase shift, I think the job domains will change much, much faster. And therefore,
Right.
the jobs have or job specialties have a shorter time span where you can deliver. And that is why this hire and fire has also become very, very common, you can possibly say. And therefore, there are so many other things which are possibly there as far as these kind of changes. But when it comes to COVID, I think it has shook every one of us. It's a fact that if I talk of the academic world, let's say I give you the example of the academic world, we were not accepting technology at all. Even now, there is a lot of resistance by a lot of senior people. How can we do online classes? Every now and then you will see articles coming up. What will happen to sports? What will happen to eye contact? What will happen to discipline? I think whatever they may say, the fate is now casted already in terms of technology being used. So that interest or resistance, whether it was interest or whether it was a resistance, it's all wiped off. It has to be used. This is what COVID has ensured. And therefore, you can say that 10 years back, we started on what we call virtual labs. You're talking about adoption of
Right.
technology in education. It didn't happen in a big way because all the ingredients or building blocks were not there. For example, virtual labs were not there, the skilling part or the lab part. Same with the examination part was there, but only limited. Only classroom activities through smart rooms and this and telecast and all that, satellite based experiments, then TV based, DTH based, and then of course web based and all that, everything was there. But now the all things have started appearing. All of a sudden, there are a dozen vendors who are doing V labs, virtual labs.
Right.
There are 2 dozen vendors who are doing examination, who is better than each other, kind of a thing. If
Right.
you see their profiles, same everything. So that is what has changed in during COVID times, last 4 to 6 months, which are there. I would say that there is a complete new terminology in terms of what is post-COVID times. One thing which has happened in a big way in Indian education is we were not necessarily very good in application research. But all of a sudden, every institution started producing masks and shields and ventilators and started collaborating and joining for vaccines and all that. By the way, SRM is doing one of the integral part of this Bharat biotech vaccine, which India is developing. They're already in
Got
the
it.
second stage of trial. So all of a sudden, when we are not collaborating with each other, we have started collaborating with each other. We were competitive, fine, but this 1+1 in Hindi, we used to say 11, 11. That was not happening. 1+1, even 2 was not happening. In Boolean, you have 1+1 is also 1. Even that was
Right.
not happening. Our 1+1 was actually 0 because we were having the same magnitude but opposite directions when we are collaborating.
Correct.
So those things have changed in a very big way. Another thing which has changed post-COVID times, in my opinion, is about the society itself. Society has understood the nature better. Society has understood the importance of efficiently utilizing the resources, be it teaching, be it education, be it time, be it anything. So that's another thing which is changing. And then, of course, I must tell you that a lot of my senior colleagues in educational profession didn't probably know even the word SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 in numbers, and we started with some smaller number earlier. Those were not prevailing, those were not known. And now all of a sudden, everyone is talking about that and trying to do something. So you can say that. And another thing is application orientation and local orientation is also creeping in with the COVID, which is there. And of course, when you talk of family, so you can take different aspects of transportation or
Right.
whatever you can say. When you talk of family, the changes are far too many. That family is now a priority. The work-life parameters wise, You have better control because you are now with your family. You take care of them, and therefore meaning of life has changed. And one concept you can say that earlier we were probably putting ourselves in a category work to live. Okay, and now we probably live to work. This kind of concept has changed. Okay, so you can say that live to work means if I'm there, I'm surviving, I'll have to keep working. Now it's the other way around, that I basically work to live. So some concepts are changing in a very big way post COVID times, and I'm sure this change would be permanent. That's
Correct.
the importance of it right now. Education, which was slow moving with the technology, has suddenly adopted it like fish will be in the water. It has seen that as a right medium, right platform, right space. Technology has become integral part of the education. So is the case now with the industry also. So is the case with the service sector, that they are
Yeah.
all technologically dependent.
I think that's very interesting, Dr. Sanchit. So, I mean, I was reading one research. I'm kind of forgetting the name of the person whose quote I'm kind of using here. If I'm not wrong, it's Paul something. That so the prediction is more this that COVID has accelerated 1 decade of change in education in 1 year. So, which was pretty phenomenal to see that whether it's transition to virtual labs or virtual assessment or using technology and multimedia in ensuring better education and so many different things that are possible. So it is really good to see that adoption happening and that change accelerating.
Mhm,
One of the other things which I just want to maybe a kind of a follow-up question is for this that this particular social transition that as we get into the COVID scenario and people are finding a lot more time at home and with family or with themselves and so on, and
mhm,
that influencing the choice of career. So career is always a function of two things that what is the job available and what do I want to do. So it was more than that for a very long time that what do I want to do was always as a something at the back. It's more this
mhm,
key, okay, I'll get a job as an IT software programmer or as a sales or
mhm,
marketing guy or as an ops professional. So
mhm,
it's more that let me just fit into it. This is the place where
mhm.
jobs are there, so I'm just go and fit myself over there. But you are saying that that is also changing, where people have a more clear idea about what they want to do, and
Correct.
so perhaps this is also possible because the market is opening up to new niche roles and new kind of career options that perhaps never existed. And do you could you add some thoughts on that compared to much earlier now in the COVID situation, or what kind of niche roles? I'm also seeing one or two questions on the gig economy coming up. So how do you see that, and how do you see graduates maybe thinking about that? Are some people having career aspirations in a slightly different direction? That it's not the standard software job or management job, but it's something different that they want to do, and there is scope to do that now.
Yeah, so as I said, the advancement has changed the complete scenario. One, probably because of the prosperity or the overall economic growth, the dependence of the young graduates, their families on the young graduates is not there. So people can experiment with certain things. So that is why people have become aspirational. For example, earlier you would be all aspiring to get a good job, but today you are aspiring to be an entrepreneur. You are yourself an entrepreneur, and that happens only when you have some safety built in. So
Right.
one is that there are many tracks. Earlier it was a job, and now there are many tracks. Tracks can be that you can be an entrepreneur, and I'm seeing from any, let's say I take engineering as an example, whether you want to be a fashion designer or whether you want to be a filmmaker or actor or a sports person, engineers are going to all domain, and same is the case with all that. So after doing your engineering, you may not be necessarily looking for engineering as a career, and you may be right from the beginning looking at this. So 3 years or 4 years of degree doesn't make much of difference in my opinion, but still engineering is a professional degree, and therefore it gives you that empowerment that you can do. Secondly, the world is seeing a technological shift right from the beginning, from the inception or the invention of wheel to various other things which were there. Maybe the wars were fought because of that, and wars stopped because of that. Second World War was because of the atomic bomb. And so is the case with technology everywhere. So technology prevails in terms of those changes. Had computer and had internet not been there, you probably would have seen the same traditional world. I say that that was probably first generation, but internet may be second generation, and now all that cybernetics and all that AI and all that may be third, fourth generation. The family is growing fast, and once the family or the generations change, the aspects of working also change. Today we know that how young kids behave and they take their own decisions. We were over dependent on our parents. That is the reason why you can possibly say that everything is changing. The other thing is the opportunities are there. Some professions were not considered to be good earlier, or some directions of job or assignments were not considered to be good. But today you can excel. In fact, you can make more money, you can get instant recognition. One example which I can say to you, which is not necessarily education, when I was young, or maybe you even when you were young, your parents and relatives must have told you that खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे खराब पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब. I think it's once again a complete shift. I think if I have to be at 16 years earning crores and becoming world famous, it's sports is the only route. Even the Bollywood will not help, or Hollywood not will not help me in that. So all those things have changed. What basically I'm trying to indicate to you is that everything where you can deliver some expert value is what is accepted by the market. I find many top families from where the kids are going into hotel industry. They want to be a chef and create something which anyway is the need of the mankind. All the time we try to eat something different, and that's what we fancy most, and therefore people are going to that sort of a domain. So what I'm saying is the world is getting flattened. Already we are talking about that. Flattening is not because of the communication alone. Flattening is every job, every profession, every profile has the same importance, and within the jobs and the profile or the specialization, every person has some utility and some key feature, and therefore it's flattening in that particular sense. Therefore people are accepting jobs the way they are coming or whatever way they are happening, and therefore the newness is also happening in the jobs.
Right. No, it's very interesting. I think one thing that this kind of links up to is basically more, as people explore different things and different options rather than being very straitjacketed and looking at only the 3 or 4 career options that we had maybe 20 years back. One of the
Mhm.
things that I think briefly what we were discussing earlier as well, that this entire shift between hiring for aptitude and hiring for skill. Um, how does this play out, and how should a, let's say, a graduate who's kind of looking at his first job or setting up a career, how does he get ready for that? Because there are some careers where companies hire for aptitude, and there are some careers where the skill becomes very important. That do you know the specific technology, or do you know the specific area, then the job opens up. So in some sense, is there some kind of balance over there that as a institute, how do you prepare people for this kind of shuffle that keeps happening?
This is something very difficult. One, because the young minds are sometimes not fully frozen in terms of what their aspirations are, what they want to become in life. And as they move along from first year to second year to whatever, things keep changing. I've met many people. When you probe them, you find that every 5 minutes their answer will change. And
Right.
that's one reason why it's something difficult to deliver to them. Second reason, of course, I have told you, industry is also changing, very rapidly changing. So once again, the outcomes or expectations are also changing. So educational system is a little at loss how to deal with that. It's a fact of life. So in the process, what we try to do is to overcome all these challenges is try to deliver them a large number of things. And we generally expect that they themselves will be taking a final call where to do better than the other domains where they don't want to focus much. And therefore, we try to deliver them a lot of with openness, many things. And this openness is going to increase extensively very soon. This new education policy has been announced, and in that we are going to make it student centric. That means a student can take three subjects, three majors, from one from arts, one from commerce, and one from engineering or medical, and still make his or her own degree. The reason for that is the domains are changing, the expectations are changing. So what one can say is subject or content or specialization is one aspect which I'm talking of. But then there are many other general attributes which one should have. And number one is that they should develop the self-learning ability. Number two, they should have something in their kitty as skills, because skills will always make you survive in your life. Today, there cannot be a life without a skill, in my opinion. And therefore, we should kind of focus on that. And we should also possibly, you can say that that INT shaped, which I've said, that you have to be having your specialization somewhere, and the knowledge of various other things is something very important. But if you can acquire the attribute of what you call a little bit of research or analytics or logical abilities, which are little deeper, they work well in every situation. Because today, even customer is not giving you orders for a standard product. If you are manufacturing something, you may have to manufacturing the same product with 10 different variations, smaller variations. So unless you can apply yourself and do something, I think it will not be customer centric in that particular case. So once again, whether you have a skill or whether you have the knowledge or whether you are good in design or perception or whatever something, I think you need to have a bigger base. Therefore, if I give you an example of electronic, you can say domain, uh, when we graduate the engineers, we will not graduate them as a fixed device or a sensor or VLSI or ULSI or whatever that may be. We actually make them as a wafer. It may be 6-inch wafer, it may be 5-inch wafer, 8-inch wafer, it may have the smoothness or the required finishing of certain kind, on which one can always grow a device, which may be a transistor or a diode or a sensor or anything. That means we make sure that the student acquires all the concerned abilities. Fortunately, many outside agencies are also helping us with those certifications, those trades, and we engage them in a big way, and also make sure that in the process our students learn, but our teachers also learn, so that if there are difficulties, they can be helped. And in long run, if we like them and the students like them, we embed them in our courses. That's another reason why industry people today sit in our or our alumni, those who are in profession for last 4, 5, 6, 10 years, sit in all our committees to make sure that such inputs are brought in. So you can say that once again, education is getting flattened to certain extent. Specializations are done by the students by way of their project, by way of their seminar, by way of their internship. But otherwise, I would expect today every graduate to learn and know a lot about computers, whether you are from mining domain or mechanical domain or aeronautical domain. I think you should know that. So that is how we are trying to probably counter the situation. You can say a little bit of freedom and a little bit of diversity. And these are the answers we have in our domain. We are not yet perfected that, by the way.
Correct. No, but I think this is very, very interesting. So, I mean, one thing that I'm taking away out of this is that so it's more that some of these critical ingredients, which actually adds up to aptitude, that learning to learn, or having that first principle thought process to problem solve, that basically you can apply yourself to something new and do something meaningful with it. I think that somewhere is foundational. Then picking up a skill. So if you've learned how to learn, or you know how to do problem solving, you inherently have developed some level of confidence that you can attack a new problem and you'll do something sensible. Then you have the ingredients to pick up the skills at will, right? So in some sense, then on the skilling side, there are so many other uh, options which can complement the formal education system, that you have NASCOM's Future Skill Initiative, or you have companies like Simplilearn who have very well designed skill-based programs which align to careers. So there are a lot of options. If the foundational aptitude is in place, that people know how to learn, they know how to apply themselves, they have the confidence to get into a unknown area and kind of do that, then they'll have enough resources out there to figure out the skills needed to get their career moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So in some sense, I think that's very valuable for
Yeah,
somebody who's
yeah, you can actually relate it to that. Today, you are seeing in your life many things which are unforeseen as you move along, and therefore the answers lie in partly research type of a functioning that you
right,
explore. Like you do a journey, a long journey, or you are doing the mountaineering or whatever. What kind of challenges you will face at what point and with what intensity is not never predictable. I think the same is the situation. All that aptitude, problem solving skills, and maybe team working skills, as I was trying to tell you, critical
right,
thinking skills, various skills which are of people's management or coordinating with others, or maybe emotional intelligence, or maybe
sure,
societal connect. Today, anything you do in your life, if you do not have the societal connect, even that probably would go wrong. Quick decision making is something very, very important. A lot of people pay the huge price when they don't make the decision in time.
right,
Maybe a little bit of going away from self orientation will also help. So these are some of the attributes which help you as you move along in your life. As you were rightly saying, that challenges are aplenty and answers are not unique right now. That's
right,
their question.
correct. I think that's very interesting. I mean, I think there's so much more that we can discuss. I mean, it is a very fascinating subject in terms of how somebody gears up for a successful career. But I mean, these are some very interesting, kind of directional thoughts for anybody to think about. I mean, I can relate to it personally as well because somewhere what I think back about my graduation days in IIT Bombay is more the that it was more the variety of things that I was able to get myself involved in, which led to the basic confidence that if there is something new, then I'll be able to apply myself and do something. So somewhere, even the educational direction that you mentioned about the new education policy that we'll be implementing, where a person could take different electives and throw himself outside of his comfort zone, that rather than
Mm,
just learning one thing over and over again,
yeah.
picking up different things and putting yourself in a different situation. I think that's where, in some sense, maybe that confidence and that aptitude building happens. So I think that's very interesting. So, Dr. Sancheti, in now, if all of these, I mean, we've discussed some stuff about the market and what leads to getting somebody ready with the right aptitude and skills and so on. How do we now translate it in terms of like a guidance to somebody who's, let's say, a modern graduate who's thinking about, let's say, in a year or so, he'll be looking at his career and getting into his first job or something like that. What kind of guidance do you look at that, maybe
Yeah.
top areas that somebody should focus on so that he's best equipped for the
Okay.
market that we see?
That's something a challenge, but this is what we do very often in our profession. A lot of young would-be graduates entering into institutions will come and seek our opinion when they have done 12th or plus two level. I think it's not an easy job, but what one should do is it's always in your life a process called process of selection and elimination. You have to see what is your benchmark, what is your goal, what is your dream, and what are your current set of conditions. Starting point always decides the end point of an optimization called life. Okay, life is nothing but an optimization. You may earn more money, but you may not have the family. You may have both
Right,
family and this, but you are still confined because of certain threats that you cannot enjoy, go out. Bollywood people can't go out very easily in public and enjoy that. They have money
right,
and fame and name. You need to decide what is your aspiration, and a young mind, if they can do it early, it's better for them. For example, I find a lot of engineering graduates, would be graduates, coming now, I want only X discipline, Whereas when you ask them, they want to become a civil servant, and that discipline has nothing to do with that particular branch anyway, or IAS, or maybe civil services. Same way, when everyone is trying to get into an MBA degree immediately after engineering, I generally tend to tell them that go for the easiest branch of engineering, whatever in your opinion. You like, let us say, mathematics and all that, probably computer and electronics will be better. Like physics and all that, possibly mechanical and production and aeronautical things will be better. You may possibly like chemistry then and biology kind of a thing, then chemical, genetics and all that, biotechnology and all that can be
Right.
better. But if that is the aim, but if they want to become an MBA immediately after this in continuation, there is no point in
Right.
worrying about the branch. So, in terms of guidance, it's a bit difficult to extract those points, and then it has to be person centric. It cannot be universal that everyone can become electronics or computer engineering. And that's
Right.
one thing which I would probably try to tell. So, number one, make a target today and make sure that your target is moving target in case you want to move it, and therefore you can follow, reorient yourself, correct yourself. I'll give you an example possibly in the end that how would I try to help a young graduate through technology, maybe in the end, that which a human being or a counselor like us cannot do it easily, very easily. So that's one aspect, that take those risks. Number one, you should understand that failure and successes are the two sides of the same coin. And if the coin is unbiased, the probability of failure and success is same. So we have to make sure that we have to bias that coin and bias it in such a way that the success rate becomes more than the failure rate. However,
Right.
we should also accept that the failure is bound to come. One who's trying to get rid of failure by running away from it is not a good thing, which I would say. Failure would be there. I think in every successful man's or person's life, you have seen the failures which are there. Of course, they get documented much later and come to fore much later. But if we understand these concepts easily or earlier, I think it would be better. So, with knowledge, acquiring knowledge or a wisdom or whatever you can say, today's context, I think we bias that coin ourselves.
Right.
We are the coin right now. We bias ourselves with that knowledge so that our successes are more than our failures. This is what we need to do. But we are still fallible. We cannot be succeeding. And that is the reason why in entrepreneurship domain, as people say, there are no clear statistics. 9 out of 10 startups don't necessarily go
Right.
beyond a certain time or go beyond a certain level. So failures are an integral part of that. Accept that, change directions, gears, don't feel shy. When the problems are there, when the successes are there, share it. By sharing also it will go, and by if you are doing good, sharing it, it will grow. And when you are failing and when you share it, it will go. Both the things will happen, and therefore people should not confine everything to themselves. They should open
Right.
up, and that is how I think they can make their life and they can go ahead. That is what I would possibly say, that will change. So, and also as you move along, if you need certain attributes to be developed, um, acquire them while you are on fly, and that's something very important. Depending upon others to serve you on that, possibly can be an answer when you scale it up. But for you to know the basics of that would be something very important, and that is how you can say an example of what I was saying for sharing. We do patenting now. A lot of people, by patenting or IP, think we are trying to keep our things secret. I think the concept is once again an entirely 180-degree shift. By doing patenting, you are making sure your commercial interest. But otherwise,
Hmm.
you're publishing everything which you do under that patent. You're telling
Right.
the world, this is what I can create, this is how I create, this is the process, and please make use of it. The whole patenting is nothing but commercialization, and commercialization
Right.
happens only when you talk to public. And therefore, talk to people, talk to develop processes, do whatever such things which are there, which is what is not taught in India, generally speaking. And the
Right.
world otherwise has done, outside world has done that slightly well, better than us. And therefore, this change has to happen in our case, is what I would suggest.
Right. Well, that's a very interesting point. I mean, I think on the last point that you were mentioning, I mean, there are so many times where there'll be some, early stage entrepreneur who will come and discuss, and he'll be very, very afraid about telling his idea to anyone. And it takes a lot of time for us to mentor him, saying that nobody is going to copy your idea. You can rest assured that maybe four other people are thinking of the same idea. It's more about execution. So I mean, on this patent side, the fear of kind of sharing it with the world, I mean, so you can take care of your commercial interests, but after that, I think only when you share, then the ecosystem builds around it, and I think everybody benefits. So that's really interesting. I think more for somebody who's again looking at their first career and first job. One of the things that I also heard you say is more around this entire fear of failure, and I think maybe one idea that I would add to it from something that I've seen and would love to hear if you also experience this is that when people are thinking about their first job or first career, there are lot of very, very short-term milestones, which because they do not have the larger idea about what a career is like, they attach way too much importance. So, for example, lot of the motivation going behind a particular kind of job that pays the highest out of campus. Whereas the reality is more this that, the what makes a successful career is that you're doing something that your aptitude is in and you don't hit a glass ceiling. So how long can you go without hitting a glass ceiling, right? So a lot of times graduates struggle with this concept. So a lot of focus will go into this ki, okay, I got a 5 lakh job, he got a 7 lakh job, and that's the definition of success. Not realizing that it's a long race. And I think you have to set yourself up for success by saying that I'm strong at these areas, let me build a career in this direction, I'm more likely to succeed. Right? So would love to hear if you've seen some thoughts around this as well.
Yeah, I mean, these things are obviously, uh, you can say your base level decides which background you come from. You come from a poor family, you come from a family which is from a rural background, you have not seen the world outside. I must tell you my own story that when I went for my PhD to UK as a commercial scholar, I had that huge fear in my mind that I'm a non-entity and I'll not be able to survive, kind of a thing. And I saw people with an awe, especially the people from the Western or advanced world, and it's only the exposure there of just a month. My first day was a very scary day for me there. Second day, I thought I'm failing. I'm not doing this and that. I didn't know how to operate a server, and I was trying to figure out various things. And, a Unix machine, which I had not seen here. I'm saying early 90s, 1991, like that. And within a month, things changed entirely that I became an indispensable person for the entire group. For everything they needed, they started harping on me and coming. So sometimes the exposure will change things in you. So people should get good exposure, and that is what through variety of schemes we are trying. For example, in education setup now, students abroad program we are trying to do, all these internships we are trying to do, the
Right.
faculties internships, so that fear will go away. But I would still say that fear is also a new knowledge. Fear means the failure with fear and all that I'm saying. Failure is also new knowledge. If I've done something with rigor and with intensity and with interest and proper planning and still failed, and if I document it, I'm
Right.
sure that this will be a new knowledge qualified for research, publication, and it's still an attainment. And not only an attainment, when people will read it and they find that you have attempted such things, they will come back to you, connect with you, use your expertise, and join hands with you. Hey, we have this answer and we can do it. So you will again act as a catalyst in doing something new. Therefore, there are various ways in which you can always convert negatives into positives or loss to a profit or loss out of profit. All that can be done. You have to have the positive outlook. Our biggest challenge in India is uh, uh, B class or C class cities or rural cities. The exposure is not enough. So all institutions should make sure that all industries should make sure that all ecosystems should make sure that proper exposure is given. If I compare, and I used to compare because I've headed many NITs, by the way, and I used to compare at that time as a head, what is the difference between an IIT and NIT? Okay, why IIT is seen to be an IIT. And by the way, my elder son was also an IIT Delhi student. We used to have some discussions over this, that why are you different? Why are we different? And we find the biggest thing was this exposure only. There the people are craving, the Nobel laureates are coming, the experts are coming, the CEOs are coming, talking, chatting, and just exploring or trying to deliver new things. And whereas in a conventional institution, we are purely focusing on the core education or the subject only. So I would say that everyone can succeed. There are many, many success stories I need not name. Indian CEOs are there everywhere in the world, top 10, top 20 companies. If you see, many of them are Indians, and they have all come from ordinary background. If you see Sundar Pichai, I think if you try to ask someone to take metallurgy today, he is going to curse you. But Sundar Pichai has gone from metallurgy to wherever. If you ask someone like Satya Nadella to go back to an ordinary institution, at that time Manipal was new and young. Today, of course, it's very good. But people will try to say, no, I want to go to only IIT or ISC or whatever it may be. But then we have all come from that ordinary background. And therefore, India should start believing in what our potential is. We are very hardworking breed. We are intelligent. We are multilingual. We can adapt to a given situation, whether it is food, living, language, whatever it may be. That is why we are succeeding. And therefore, I don't see we not encashing this particular upcoming changes in our favor. Indians will be omnipresent, and graduates of all kinds are going to do very well, is what I think.
No, Dr. Sancheti, I think on that very, very positive note, I completely, agree with that, that I think the biggest thing that our graduates can do is that if they enter life with a very positive state of mind and with confidence, I'm sure that they all have the skills to kind of build a great career for themselves. But maybe in interest of time, I think I'll move to some of the questions that have come from the audience, and maybe we can share
Sure.
our thoughts around that.
Sure.
So, one question that I see here is do you think that the industry still attaches greater significance to degree qualifications than to short courses and informal learning? I think that's one of the questions that we've got
Mhm.
on the group. So,
Yeah, as of now, it's true, and not only that they are attaching it to degree, they are attaching it to a degree from a reputed or a known institution, also. As I said, from an ordinary institution, also a good guy can come. I gave you the example of Satya Nadella. At that time, he was not in IIT or REC, yet he has risen to whatever level, and therefore industry is currently attaching that to that, and they have their own accreditation systems and do that. But it's opening up. You know that some of the top companies like Google's and all that possibly have people from age of 14, 15 years being consultants or being whatever disruptors or thought process change makers and all that. So it's getting accepted. In my opinion, ultimately talent or skill will prevail. Industries are not necessarily going to follow that path for long. In our own setup, if you see TCS as an example, I would say that TCS started taking for the conventional entry level jobs for which they hire a lot of people. They started taking BScs, and therefore BSc computer science or BSc something like information science or data science is happening. On the other side, educational institutions, IISc never offered. I'm a board member there, so I'm saying that they never offered earlier anything other than postgraduate program, but today they are offering UG program also. IIT, for example, never offered a 3-year undergraduate program, but IIT Chennai has started something on data science very recently. So the change is happening, and but one has to prove his or her skill. The challenge here right now is that you don't get chance to prove that. Once for one post, there are 10, 20 applications, let's say, then an initial filtering becomes an essential thing, and the easy filtering criteria is look at the qualification. And that's where sometimes the skill loses out, or they don't get an opportunity to showcase what they have in their kitty. And so that's, you can say, bias we have in the system, but hopefully it will change. That's my expectation.
Right. So I would also add to that. I think what we have also seen in practice is more this that the professional degree and the kind of academic qualifications that somebody has had, it's always a very strong indicator of the amount of dedication that the person had. Right. So the person was not lax. He did not kind of leave it loose and kind of have a bad academic career. But beyond that, a lot of the new age jobs and it finally boils down to how a person proves himself in the assessment or interview or group discussion and so on. So I think it's more that the professional degree and having a good academic qualification is kind of baseline. If you don't have that baseline, then it gets more difficult. But beyond that, then it becomes more how you are applying yourself. And obviously, if you have some skills which are being sought of in the market, then it becomes a sweetener in that sense. It is that much easier to kind of get the right kind of job.
We
So I
still
think
are very traditional. I'll just give an example. The same person, Kashyap ji or Sandeep, can teach the course to an individual and give a degree with SRM or some name. The same
right,
person is teaching outside SRM and not giving the degree, but giving the same education. The problem here is
right,
that that is not valued, though the person may be equally competent. The same thing happens, let's say, in consultancy. I give you consultancy and I give it in my name that Sandeep Sancheti says that. You may like it, but the moment I say that, no, this IIT is saying that, and from IIT Sandeep Sancheti
correct.
is signing that, I think the value changes. So that's how the
Yes,
world has moved initially, but for sure it's going to change. There are many coders, there are many developers, many app writers, or whatever. They are not necessarily from the same set of qualifications, but they have done wonders. So world is
right,
accepting them even without degrees, for sure.
correct. Absolutely. I think moving on, so we have a question on. Um, there is a person who has a MBA in travel and tourism as a sector, and in the prevailing situation, there's a complete disruption of these industries. Um, so for an individual looking at a career in that sector, how should he approach? I think this is a very unique case in some sense. I don't know if there's. So, would you have some thoughts on this?
Uh, Not the best, but I would say that this is one expert domain which I liked it always. Hotel management and tourism and travel. As we become economically sound, we tend to take more advantage of that. But COVID has only put it in a slight difficulty. And this is one sector which is facing the biggest music right now. But as I said, there will be failures in your system, not necessarily by your own design, but because of the other things or the nature which is there. Please take them in your stride. I'm every day or every second day I'm craving to go out and eat outside and visit this place and that place in my own current situation. And therefore I'm pretty sure the moment COVID vaccine is there and the situation is normal, there'll be
Right,
a spurt of activities and redemption of what you call the travel and tourism sector. So you have to have the patience till that time. However, till that time, either you can take some sundry job and still survive. But if you don't want, there are many things in life which you can do to fulfill yourself, be it in the sports domain, be it in reading certain new things, be it helping an already running setup in your family without worrying about the cost and the remuneration and all that, so that you learn that. I think these things sometimes can be God given things. I've seen in my own life, my cousins and friends, that they failed in something. They had time in hand and they were probably something happened. Someone learned more about agriculture, someone learned more about uh, even homeopathy and all that, and that has changed their life. Okay, because they got time to do all that. So you should not despair, is my advice to the young friend who is seeking answer to this particular thing. This is going to come with a bank. And once it comes back, I think it's going to be equally rewarding and it will compensate for all the losses which has happened, because this is in inherent nature of mankind to move out and to look at the places to eat different foods and all that. Therefore, this sector is bound to do well.
I think that's very well said. I mean, a lot of times we discuss about this that right now in COVID situation, it's always push and pull between desperation and fear. So we are all in the house because we are afraid of catching this. But there's always a part of us that is pushing us, saying that it's enough. Let's get out now. So, so it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's a matter
But
of time.
so moving to one other question, which is very specific, and I mean, it's
Mhm.
is BCA versus engineering, which is better? And this is something, Dr. Sancheti, if you have a view, we could.
The answer is need not be given by me right now. The new education policy is already giving an answer. If you have read those headlines, probably you see that a 3-year degree or 4-year degree can be given by the same institution in the same domain, depending upon a student's choice. If you think in a 3-year degree you have undertaken good projects, good internships, good innovations you have done, I would say even without degree you'll be wonderful, and a person like me will be ready to employ such person who can deliver goods in a given circumstances. So why 3-year and 4-year comparison? There are cases where we find even after masters they don't mend their ways and they still remain as fuzzy and as you can say ordinary, and they don't gain anything. So the number of years put in is not very important. The level acquired is very important. I like those people who very clearly understand what they want to achieve in life. Okay, a BCA route can lead you to a certain starting point. After that, your performance in that first job will count and take you further. In IT sector, BCA obviously is related to IT sector. I think there is nothing called an essential requirement of a degree as long as you are able to deliver. IT sector, when it was in its initial phase and in boom, I think a lot of body shopping was happening. I know that a lot of graduates of BCA, BSc were being picked up from the institution as long as they had the required skill sets. And therefore, my answer is 3-year and 4-year is no difference. Even engineering and non-engineering is no difference. Anyone can do the same thing provided they have the skills in hand. We see a lot of novel designs, a lot of grassroots innovation level things happen outside engineering students, people from rural background, people who are working in the field, they create many unique things. And therefore, an engineering degree is not essential for surviving in life, for sure. Though I'm an engineer, I love engineering. But being an engineer, you can only say that you can create new things. As a BCA also, or as a BBA also, you can create many new things. BBA can create new processes very easily. You can create new codes, new languages, new approaches, new algorithms, maybe new protocols. Everything you can do, nothing stops you. That's what I would say.
That's great. So there are three or four related questions, and I think these are very specific on specific technologies and trends. That what is scaling. So, Dr. Sancheti, maybe I'll just share a few answers to that, and then we'll come back to one question that's specifically for you. So I'm seeing a question on data science. That will there be good demand for data science after the COVID pandemic? And then there are similar questions for AI, cloud computing, and uh, programming. So maybe I'll try to answer
Sure.
that together. And Dr. Sancheti, you can add, what you feel about it. But so I think one thing that we are seeing very strongly is that what has the pandemic done? I think what it has done is that it has pushed a whole lot of time of mankind in general onto internet or on devices. So earlier, if we had a lot of interaction in an office space or outside, I think a lot of that time is going into these devices, and as a result, a lot of these technologies are seeing that hockey stick curve, that they are seeing a boom, which is unprecedented and accelerating many years of growth into this short period of time. So there is a data report that we were looking at that the amount of data consumption in 1 month in US, where a lot of this data is more easily available, has shot up by 67%. because people are spending so much more time on the internet and on their devices and so on, that 67% growth in data consumption. So now automatically this translates into growth in sectors like data science, sectors like artificial intelligence, and so on. Right. I think another related stat is what does it as everybody works from home and interacts from home. Everything that we are doing is on the cloud. So companies who had a intranet and you could access it only when you are in office, they have been forced to open it up to the cloud. So again, that translates into crazy growth for cloud and cloud technologies and so on. And I think similarly, internet and programming and all digital technologies. In fact, another thing that we have seen, Dr. Sancheti, a huge boom in is cybersecurity. I think this you were also mentioning that as everybody is accessing stuff from home, cybersecurity becomes so much more critical. So I think one broad answer to everybody who's asked these 4 or 5 related questions is that uh, I mean we are definitely seeing this trend that as as this pandemic pans out, a lot of the digital tech is going through very rapid growth, and obviously there are more jobs getting created there as well. So yeah, I mean that's a few points on that front.
I'll supplement your answer here by saying that sometimes back for a webinar, when I was going through, I came across maybe top 10 or top 8 or whatever declining or emerging roles kind of a thing. And if I see those domains, basic and infrastructure, consumer side, energy side, financial services side, healthcare, information communication technology, mobility, and professional services. Uh, the job profile which is taking a biggest shape or which is emerging in all these sectors put together is related to computer and software engineering is finding number one or number two in most of them. Out of these 8 names which I have given to you, if you see what do they need at number one or number two, either it's a software engineering or computer engineering or something of that kind of a thing is available. And therefore, I said it in one of the answers which I was trying to cover that today, whatever you may do, you may be an arts person or history person or commerce person, or you may not be any person in terms of education, but you still need to know the basics of all these, what we call the computer and the IT and the services rendered, because that's how you'll survive in the life. Today, the banking has completely become like that. Entertainment has become completely through that. And various other things in your life will be through IoT and connected these things. Your own parameters of your life will be communicated to you by these devices, and you'll have to interpret them and do. And therefore, this sector is going to grow, whether you call it big data or small data or biggest data, doesn't matter. It is going to remain for foreseeable future.
Right. So I think one last question, Dr. Sancheti, which I have here is more around, so somebody from a non-tech background aspiring towards a career in the technology field, and perhaps I'll make it slightly more generic that, a lot of the stuff that we have discussed about is more around alignment of education and, the job market. So this is a very interesting question that, if let's say a person specializes in one field, and a lot of times we get into a graduation without complete think through that what do I want to do in life. So if I've graduated in one area and then I'm aspiring towards another area, how do I navigate, and is it difficult, and what can I do to compensate? I think that's the more generic form of the question.
Okay. My answer is nothing to worry about, because this is an age where multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, I'll not differentiate between them, is highly, highly desirable or acceptable. So, for example, the world will think patenting is a very, very technical job, whereas truly speaking, this has to be done by a lawyer more than a technical person. Technical person will innovate and do something, but when it comes to taking it in shape of patent, it is done by a person of that nature. You may do a lot of technology, I may do, but I may still do a poor design of my hardware in terms of its utility, be it chair or be it my laptop or whatever. A designer will come, a designer maybe from arts or performing arts or whatever that science it may be. I think when I use and write certain instructions and all that, the linguistics and people with those kind of background would be very, very handy. When I'm using it and when I'm communicating what is right and wrong, the people with psychology background will come into play. And therefore, you'll find that whether I'm from technology background and I'm manufacturing all that, I'll still have to hire such people who have those pieces of knowledge to make my product worthwhile for general public. And therefore, there is a space for everyone. When it comes to marketing, I need not tell what kind of attributes you require. A lot of communication skills which are required, a lot of reasoning, etc., which will require a lot of some special things. So tell me, I can ask that gentleman, or you can give me an answer. Which is that attribute which is paining someone? I'm saying everything sells today. Everything has a utility today. In my opinion, everything is cross-connected. You are not now living in a silo called, oh, I know my programming and therefore I'm the best. Now, if I cannot explain and categorize my code and make people understand that code has no value, because in next 1 month when it is to be moderated and changed upon, it cannot be done because I'm not good at that. So writing basic things, doing basic things will not be very fine. And therefore, my strong advice is this is a nice thing that you come from a different background and still help a technology background or any other background. And therefore, there is a cross connection and very well acceptable to me. This is the boundary which is getting fuzzy. New knowledge, new research, new development is all happening there. By the way, to support that answer, I would say that recently some councils and regulatory bodies have made it compulsory that all new courses which one would be allowed to start will have to have multidisciplinary in nature. No traditional things will be started or allowed to be started. It has to have multidisciplinary. So the question raised here is also about the different disciplines and different
Right.
disciplinary, and therefore it's very well acceptable. Uh, Success route to any particular position or level is not necessarily through one path. And here I'd like to give one example, which I was trying to tell you that I'll give you in the end. And that to be the best, you need not be necessarily coming from that particular domain. We know that a lot of top people need not have done computer engineering, but they are the best in the computer domain right now. Or so would be the case in any other industry domain, whatever way you can say. And therefore, route to success is from any direction, any field, any way. Times may differ, maybe the efforts may differ, and therefore, I am of the opinion the kind of activity which we are trying to do is to guide our young students in this challenging world. That how do they make their career? Now, this is very subjective because I would not know my client very well, his background very well. Whereas your systems, the current IT systems or database systems, can possibly capture that very easily over a period of
Right.
years and keep guiding me. So, like we have what we call a GPS, the global positioning system. So, if I want to go from position A to position B in a city, I give my current position, my data and all that, and I give the position or the coordinates or the name of the other position, and I get 10 different answers. And in 10 different answers, I get 10 different values of, let's say, congestion or cost or time, or whether I'm better by car or by motorcycle or by cycle or whatever. Everything comes
Right.
to me, all the options. And that is nothing but a guidance. I think something like this is required for career building of the young people because the parameters are far too many. And therefore, and it's all a nonlinear optimization in terms of what you want to achieve or get.
Right.
And therefore, I would suggest that, and I've suggested this openly at a couple of forums here and there, particularly in a Microsoft conference in Seattle last year. I did share that we should have, like GPS, a thing called SPG, Students Personal Guidance System, being developed where students will constantly feed his or her data from 8th or ninth or 10th standard.
Right.
And based on various successes, attainments, failures, interest, records, performances, it will get. And finally, when he or she comes to a stage where he wants a decision, he will say, okay, after 10 years, I want to become let's say, Bill Gates, or 20 years Bill Gates, or I want to become
Right.
Bill Clinton, or I want to become Steve Jobs, or I want to become whatever they want to say, they will feed that. And this system, based on that big data and artificial intelligence and my basic information based level data, should be able to guide the person. So you will become self-dependent. You will get the help of the data. You'll have many ample of cases to tell you the success and failure stories, and it will also tell you the cost, whether you will reach there or not, what will be the risk involved, what are the ways to improve your chances, which skill to acquire to improve your chances to reach there. Now, I may not be knowing best of the skills every time or who is delivering it, but that database will have all that information and that can give it. So, therefore, I would say that uh, these kind of systems are going to be available, and these kind of systems are going to make sure that everyone benefits from this new tech and all this whatever is available to us through our AI and all that, and we can get personalized guidance tailored to our requirements. That is what can happen. And however, one should make sure that your starting point is a very good starting point, optimized point, and then obviously the success of that optimization will become much better once the starting point is.
Right. I think that's very, very interesting. In fact, that's a startup idea right there, if somebody wants to build it. So, but just one comment that I wanted to add for the person who's asked this question is also that, I think at an early stage, whatever be the career or whatever be the degree that you have got into, but if you've discovered a passion for something that you want to do, I think that itself is the biggest asset. I mean, there's a example about, so my brother-in-law himself, he has a degree in commerce, so he's done a BCom, but then he's basically built a career in IT. So he's a software architect now, and obviously it was comparatively difficult. I mean, if you're a software engineer by degree, and then you move into that. So computer science to software engineer is easier, but he's been able to navigate that. And I think what really made it happen for him was his passion. And he was very clear that that's what he wanted to do in life. And there are very few people, who have that kind of clarity early on in their career. So I would more compliment the person that if you're clear about what you want to do, you'll more likely than not you'll get there. So I think
Very sure.
right. So I
Same
think
same thing would be true for game developers. You have to be a gamer, and then only you can code it. If you just know the coding, you cannot develop the game because you will not know the nitty gritty. So the domain expertise on top, the computer or IT expertise will always be the best combination for success. Is my message to the young people or the young graduates of today.
yeah. So Dr. Sancheti, I think this is such an exciting topic. I mean, I'm sure we could go on, but I think in interest of time and respecting your time and everybody else's, I think let me pause there. Any closing statements you'd like to make? I mean, something you'd like to leave the audience with?
There are so many things. We are teachers, we are preachers, and at times we don't miss that opportunity. I would basically say that you should be more adaptable. We have been discussing that. You yourself said that, and there are examples which we have quoted. Uh, do whatever you do with your heart in it. Be very competitive. After that, pass and fail will not mean much, in my opinion. You will be able to take everything in your stride. Even if success comes, it will not go to your head. And even if failure is there, you'll not ruin your life. That is what I would say. The other thing I've already said, whatever knowledge you do, unless you share it, you'll not get the recognition. And recognition, in my opinion, the wealth of life is not money. Wealth of life is recognition. And therefore, whatever good you are able to do, share it. It will always keep you in good stead, and you will feel very satisfied with your life. That's something very, very important. And at times, when it comes to Indian setup in terms of work, I've seen many people when they are at work, they are worried about home, and when they are at home, they are worried about the work. I think that cocktail is not a very good cocktail in terms of process or whatever which is there. And that's another thing. I'll also possibly say that while you work in a certain domain, keep something outside the domain as your work or interest, because sometimes life may not be in the same linear fashion functioning. At that time, you will survive with those things. Those interests may be sports, hobbies, debates, elocutions, whatever it may be, even politicking. Teaching profession is the one which I love. One I said is because of the longevity of life. The second is I can be a teacher, but I can also be an entrepreneur. I can start my companies. Such features are not easily available in other professions. When you are working for a company, you become yourself an entrepreneur is not possible. And see the top, I can become a politician also very easily. I can contest for anything. I can become minister, and a lot of educationists have become ministers and all that. So what I'm trying to say is keep the interest, go into a profession where you can serve your interest. All that will also be very nice. Now in the current context, the other important thing is when the freedom is given, autonomy is given, be very, very cautious. Don't be indiscriminate. When we have a lot of money and freedom with the money and we become indiscriminate, that is the fall of us. And that's where we need to be taking care. Another thing which is becoming important in Indian context is the quality. We were never much quality conscious. Chalta hai was the attitude we used to have for a long, long time. But now we know that the quality pays dividends in long run, long term. And ultimately, if you have to succeed, be aware of yourself. We have been doing swags of institutions and organizations and products and processes, but we are not generally very happy with SWOT of your own self. The moment you are told these are your weaknesses, people feel bad about it. I think that should go away. And if you do that, I think you will succeed. So this would be my broad message. And one message I've already given, be a team player all the time. You cannot do everything in life today. I'm pretty sure, Kashyapji, that when you founded Simplilearn, there must have been many, many co-founders. You are also a co-founder. That's because the team is required. People with different attributes can excel. Someone in marketing, someone in finance, someone in technology, someone in something else, processes and production. And therefore, make sure that you have the teams to work with, and therefore you can always swing through the difficult times easily if you have the team. These are some of the tips, some of the messages, or some of the things I can possibly share. I know these are difficult to follow. Some of them they can be done only with the life's experience, but then try to accelerate that if you want to be more successful. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sancheti. I think I found the discussion to be very valuable and thought-provoking. I'm sure that the audience has also really enjoyed it. I'd like to thank you for taking your time out and joining us for this webinar. I'd also like to thank all the viewers and audience who's logged in for this webinar, and Stuart for setting it up for us. So thank you, everyone. And Stuart, over to you. I think we've covered what we had.
Let me also thank everyone, especially the audience who have joined at this hour and this point of time and raised questions. Also, thanks to you, Kashyapji, and everyone in Simplilearn and your team for inviting me. It's a great deal of learning experience for me as well. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Sancheti. Thank you, Kashyap, and thanks to our audience. We invite you to join our next webinar, which will be 2 weeks from now, Tuesday, August 25th, on the topic of digital marketing, current issues for websites, and how to pivot your business to adapt to the new normal. With Matt Bailey, founder of SiteLogic and a faculty member at Simplilearn. And you can connect with us, follow us with our various social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars. And that concludes today's presentation. So at this time, I'd like to invite our panelists and our attendees to log off WebEx. There will be a survey that pops up for the attendees. And if you would take a few minutes to answer those questions, we would appreciate that. Again, thank you all very much, and this concludes the webinar.
Thank you.